Ivory Coast cheaper than they can grow them themselves. You know, all to look after the French farmers. Goodness me.
Well, how did you just say? I would like to just ask. You say in. How did you discover Mamre?
How did we discover Mamre? You see, I was on the Umkhonto Regional Command. I ran a training school, an education school, 2 nights a week in a trade union hall in Athla.
Okay.
There was a building where there were trade unions.
Okay, in Athla.
In Athla.
Yeah.
And on Sundays we used to go up the mountain. We had a team of young people that I was teaching electrical circuits and field telephones and first aid, how to make pamphlets, how to use an old-fashioned duplicator, there were no photocopy, how to type. We're teaching political history of South Africa, and Sundays walking. And then we thought it would be good. It wasn't officially a military school, of course, an Umkhonto school, but it was. And then we decided if we could have a 10-day camp, like a scout camp, you know, but we can give it a real training, field of training.
Boot camp.
Yeah, all right. But, and then somebody said, I think it was Cardiff Mani, who was in Coloured People's Congress.
Is it Cardiff?
Yeah.
Cardiff Mali.
Yeah.
Okay.
M-A-R-N-E-Y. When he went into exile, he joined PAC.
Okay.
We became a very close friend of Barney Desai.
Okay, fine enough.
But he was with us. I think we enrolled him onto the committee for the camp. And didn't say it was an Umkhonto camp. But somebody, I don't know, one of the people we, in our working there, knew, and we went one Sunday, we went for a march. We marched out from the old Oak Road or Durbanville Avenue. We walked up as far as we could towards Mamre, and we went to look at it.
Okay.
Because, you see, none of us actually had military training.
Okay.
And so we were looking for people who were natural leaders. You go up the mountain, and there are people who can encourage others, people who can lead.
Okay.
And then you know you're not going to let them be sent away. You're going to keep these guys. And this is what we did. They outwalked me, I can tell you. They could outwalk me.
Okay.
They walked to work every day, I suppose. But and we went to Mamre and we looked and we found this place. And unfortunately, our bread went rotten for this camp. When at the Christmas time, when we went on the camp, the bread went rotten.
Can I just? You went to Mamre from where?
The first time.
Yes. Where were you from then?
Well, we were all in Cape Town.
Cape Town.
And
Okay.
we went out in a couple of cars, out on the old Oak Road, I think, or Durbanville Road. The old road that you used to take to go out to Malmesbury and Langebarn and so on.
Okay.
It was a narrow tarred road. That's how we went. The roads are quite different now. I feel a bit lost, you know. I still don't know this area very well. And we walked, we must have walked, what, 20 kilometers or something? Or 15 kilometers, and back again. Only I got very tired, so I asked for a lift, because I couldn't. I got a lift, I got the car and went back and fetched them. It was getting too late as well. But that training camp was quite remarkable, because we had an organising committee, and I think Look Smart and Goodley was on it, and Cardiff, and Ahmad Osman, who came out of Coloured People's Congress as well. before 1961 stay-at-home. You remember there was a stay-at-home.
Yeah.
He was in Unity Movement, but they wanted to boycott again. And a whole lot of people came from Unity Movement into Coloured People's Congress, into the Congress movement. And Ahmad Osman was a high school teacher of history, brilliant teacher. He could teach history to even people who didn't even have matric and the language, and but he made it so alive. It was wonderful, really. And so we went out to this camp. We wanted, because I was appointed by the committee to be the commander of the camp. I said, look smart should be.
How old were you then?
28, I suppose.
28, still young.
Yeah.
61.
1961. Yeah, December 61, I was 28. And I wanted Look Smart to be the commander because...
Look smart.
Look Smart Ngudle.
Ngudle.
He was murdered eventually under interrogation, and just last year we gave his remains back to his family in a ceremony. His body was exhumed. He was murdered in prison in Pretoria and buried in, what's the township there called? Mamelodi. His bones were exhumed and brought to Cape Town and handed to his family. I thought it was important that the commander should be somebody who is of the people. He must be able to move around with people. I can't. I'm white. If a policeman is to see me with a group of youngsters at night in the bush, immediately that's suspicious. But the committee insisted I be commander, and what I did was make Look Smart the field commander. Because you have to have somebody who's knowing what people are saying. I don't speak Xhosa. So how do I know what the youngsters are saying?
How many youngsters did you have?
I think we were 27 people there. I haven't got all the names. I've got some of them from Archie Sebeko's book of his life, his little book. And there are two names now. Peter Willie was one of them.
Peter Willie.
Yes. And there's another name I've got as well on that in my computer. We can get the names, and if we're desperate for the names, we need to find out if the police can find the files. Because I was telling you, when we went on the camp in December 1961, our bread went mouldy. And Cardiff Mani went off to buy bread. And I should have told him to go a long way away from where we were camping. But he went to the nearest shop. And when he bought a lot of bread, the guy said, oh, so much bread. Cardiff said, yes, we're camping down on the beach. Because it's near the west coast, you see. But he was suspicious, the shopkeeper, and he called a man, I think a coloured man, who was the commissioner for this mission land. You know, it was like a coloured reserve. I can't remember the legal details. And he came looking for us. And we were camping without permission. And there were some coloured people there. Henny Ferris from Worcester. Henny Ferris also died later in a motor smash, and it was thought that he was murdered by the security police. You know, in a forced accident, bumped off sort of thing. So that's what some people said. I just can't remember all the names. But this commissioner, or this supervisor of this mission land, he saw us having this lecture. Albie Sachs was giving a political lecture. Albie was brought in just for the political lecture. He wasn't staying with us.
Albie Sachs.
Yeah. And then he saw we had a motor car engine there. Because I wanted young people to know about motor car engines. You go out on a mission, and this car breaks down, you must know what you must do.
see.
check the spark plugs. Is there a spark? Is it a petrol blockage? Simple things, you know.
Okay.
I was teaching them these things. I mean, I went out once to Worcester and my car coming back over to Kloof broke down. And actually I was rescued by some South African Defence Force soldiers.
Okay.
They helped me fix my car and I had a pile of leaflets calling for the people to stay at home. But I'm white and I'm travelling on my own and I'm stuck, so these soldiers helped me fix my car. You know, I mean, you've got to be able to do these things. You must know what you're doing. And this made the man suspicious. And so he called the security police who came. And when the security police came, they saw the known faces of Goldberg and Goodlay and Sachs and others. And so they took all our names, but it was Christmas time. So they said, go home. We won't let you stay here. And told everybody there they've got to come to the police station. I think 1 or 2 people did. The rest, nobody else went.
They had to come on their own.
Yes, yeah.
Come on their own.
Yeah.
Don't leave them there.
We were surprised. There was one, but then when the Rivonia Trial came, the police picked up some of these people and held them under 90 days.
The same people that went there.
That were at the training camp. And there was a guy, Cyril Davids, who was a very good man. I think they broke him under interrogation.
Okay.
And he described what we had done, and he was there to teach people of how to make electrical circuits. And if you want to make explosives go off, you need electrical circuits, you know. If you want to delay them, you want to set them off at a distance and so on. That's not what I told the young people in training. I just want you to know. I mean, I was teaching at our school previously and again at this camp. Teaching young people who had no education, no science, no technology. Here's a diagram, here's a drawing. You can make this electrical circuit work. Of course, I just used little light switches and batteries and so on, you know, little. But they could read this and build a circuit and look out and learn about electricity. Things which young white children knew automatically, because you grew up with it, you know. And these young black kids who would be our soldiers didn't know. That's what I was teaching. And Cyril Davids was training them at the camp. And we had field telephones. You know, if you want to communicate, you must know how to use telephones and how to lay telephones and so on.
Therefore, you had your own telephones.
Yes, we had little. You get some telephones that your voice makes the power for them to work over short distances, you know.
Okay.
And you can strengthen them with batteries. We taught them all of that. We were going to teach them also how to make model top cocktails.
What's that?
You know, that's a bottle that's made with petrol in it and a rag in the top.
Okay.
And you light it and you throw it and it smashes.
What they call petrol bomb.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, petrol bomb.
What do you call it?
Molotov cocktail. Molotov was a Bolshevik revolutionary.
Okay.
And apparently that's where the name comes from.
Okay.
It's a bottle that looks like drink, but it's an explosive firebomb, petrol bomb. But we didn't get to that point. We had the bottles, but we didn't get that far. Luckily, because that would have might have got some of us the death sentence at the Rivonia Trial. So Cyril Davids gave evidence, and one youngster gave evidence as well. I also read stories to them about revolutionary action. I read from Che Guevara's book on guerrilla warfare, and I read from a book about the Algerian War of Liberation.
Okay.
And I read a story about by the French writer Jean-Paul Sartre. It's a story called The Wall, and it's set in the Spanish Civil War. Wall, W-A-L-L.
Okay, the Wall.
The Wall was where the Spanish fascists who overthrew their elected government in the 1930s. And Franco's fascists were backed by the Nazi Germany and fascist Italy. Overthrew their government. And when they tracked down the people defending the elected government, they would shoot them at a place in a prison against a wall. And the story is about
firing squad.
A firing squad, yes.
Okay.
The story is about not giving your interrogators information because it leads them to catch more and more people. And you're faced with the choice of being executed yourself or getting your friends killed, your comrades. I wanted, just in the same way we taught first aid.
Okay.
I didn't want to say to the youngsters, you know, we're going into an armed struggle maybe, and it's very dangerous. I wanted them to understand that war is a serious thing. It's not just a light-hearted adventure. I wanted them to understand that when you shoot guns, other people are shooting at you. People die, people get wounded. You have to know how to look after them.
Okay.
In other words, it's not a Boy Scout heroic adventure. It's something very, very serious. And we talked along these lines. And we talked about the history of, I mean, in World War II, there were the Nazi armies occupied Europe and different countries. There were resistance movements. They fought against the military. There were the people of Vietnam, there were the people of Cuba, the people of Algeria. They fought the occupying armies, so why should we not do it as well? That was the kind of training we were doing.
We were actually working on rationale that it's you have to make a choice.
You must make a choice, yes.
Okay.
Now, these people, many of them later left the country to go into exile.
Okay.
And they built up a tremendous reputation in exile. They became cadres in Umkhonto. Later, when they got older, they became cadres in the ANC. Some of them later did military training in Uganda and went into the South African National Defence Force after liberation.
Okay.
They became senior officers,
Yeah,
colonels and brigadiers and generals.
Yeah, do you know some of their names maybe? Because I'd like to also track them.
Yes, but there are people in your office who know them all already. I keep hearing about people who are making films and doing work on this. They work in the culture department. I'll get their card in a moment. But there was Wilson Mose. He became a brigadier in the army.
Okay.
He's just retired last year. He was from Blowfly in retreat. And he was in exile. You know, there's an Umkhonto-owned farm in Tulbach, and there's some of our comrades live there. You know who knows them is Sharif Pando.
Sharif Pando. That's
The husband of the Minister of Education. Yeah, Naledi, yeah.
Sharif Pando.
I can't get him on the telephone. He doesn't answer my calls. He don't know why. He's too busy or something. There are other people who also want to. I met this Alfred Willie or Peter Willie, Alfred Willie. his name at Red September's birthday party.
Okay.
Now, I'll tell you what I want to do. I think in December, because the camp was in December 1961.
Okay.
So in December, I would like to have a little reunion.
Okay.
If necessary, I'll finance it myself, but I think our Minister, Whitey Jacobs, should provide the money. I would like to have just a get-together, afternoon into evening. It doesn't have to be at Mumry, but it would be nice if we could find a hall. And to have a party and some drinks and film people telling their stories.
It could be in Mamre.
You know, the community hall next to the mission station.
Well, I'm not
It's
sure.
has got quite a capacity.
Put them a key.
Yeah,
Put them a key.
yeah, we
At
could
the,
put them
at
up.
the spot.
Yeah.
Put them a key,
It
put
would
them
be,
in.
would be much
It would be very nice if we could do that.
Yes.
I know that some people have been talking to the members of the community about putting up a memorial, a place of memory. And I tell you, my conception of it is not on the campsite, because that's quite a long way from the road,
Okay.
but at the gateway that leads on the gravel road to the campsite, on the main tarred road. Put up a little plaque to say this was the first Umkhonto camp inside South Africa, December 1961. Maybe the names of the people who attended it.
Could even have their families attending.
Well, if we're still alive, those of us, if we can find them. I have a fear, I must tell you. A lot of people are claiming to have been in Umkhonto who never were. Some of them are so young they could not have been in Umkhonto, but they claim they were active.
They're there.
Not at that place, in general. And I would like to be sure that if we have a reunion, the people who are connected will really link to it. It needs careful organising, so we know who's telling the truth and who's not, because we're trying to develop a serious history. These were the people, how did they get there, what was their action before, what did they do afterwards, what were their experiences, what are they doing now, you know? And my conception of it is not anything big and elaborate with huge buildings or anything. Something very simple, because it was not a big event. It's just that it took place. So a little column, maybe if there were 27 of us there, maybe 27 blocks, each with a name on it. Something like that. Something very, very simple.
Do you still recall their names?
We've got quite a lot of the names, and we can build it up from each other. I mean, I've got this book that I told you, I know some names, and I've just... And there are people who remember the names, who were there. They will help us. In my head is the number 27. You see.
27.
So maybe 27 blocks sort of just jumbled together with the names, you know, done artistically. But it's not as though it was a big military base and therefore thousands of people went through it and therefore, you know, huge, or it's not like a Vietnam War memorial, but just a little remembrance.
Yeah.
That's what people wanted. I know that Minister Pallo Jordan has agreed to the idea, but that's verbally with me. And Whitey Jacobs, Minister MEC, has agreed, if Pallo would agree. And perhaps we need to get the City Council to agree as well. But it's a DA City Council, so it might not be so easy, you see. But, you know, we need to work out how to do it. This is part of our history and part of the Western Cape, and the Western Cape is very much overlooked in the history of our struggle.
Yeah, we can look and bring in the education for documenting the history.
So that's my recollection of Mumry. We were very excited at the time, you know. As I say, Look Smart was murdered by the security police under interrogation.
You were not scared?
Scared. You mean about going to the camp?
Yes.
I proposed it.
No,
We thought we were bullied. We thought we were invisible. We thought we were quite safe. We didn't think of what would happen if we got caught. And I tell you, the police came, the security police came, we had to go home, we had to pack up. And so we were really angry then, you know. The youngsters were really fed up. Because anyway, camping is nice. It's not something young African and coloured kids did together in those days.
Then also...
I just want to finish the story. So I told you Look Smart was in effect the field commander.
Okay.
And he got everybody lined up, and now we're going to do military drill. We've been caught, we might as well been to military drill. But he didn't know how an army does military drill. He had to invent it.
Okay.
And so he invented it in an African way.
Yeah.
He had them standing in line. He said, we stamp our foot, and they stamp the right foot. Doof, doof,
Okay.
doof. Until everybody's in the same rhythm. And then he said, now the other foot. And then he said, now forward, march. And off they marched, all together. Because he'd built the rhythm himself, which is what you do. You must be able to work together. And then when we got back to Langa, we had this big truck delivering everybody back. Hey man, they were singing on the way back. Now we really are soldiers. I'm a Johnny.
I'm a Johnny as Africa.
Yeah.
That song when I was...
Hey man, they were singing and beating us. We'd get there. The guys from Langa jumped off and they formed up like a military platoon.
Yeah.
And they went marching and we're pretending we're not soldiers. They didn't care.
Yeah.
These guys are known for their record in exile of the work they did.
Okay.
They were my guys.
Okay.
And then when I arrived in Lusaka, after I came out of prison, I came into the ANC compound. And there's a guy, it's like a Western movie. There's a veranda, you know, a stoop. And there's a guy leaning against the wall. And I came walking in, first time into the ANC compound. This is 1985. And this guy snaps to attention, Comrade Commandant. Only time I was called that was at the camp, at Maumri.
Okay.
I said, were you at the camp? He says, you don't remember me.
Okay.
I said, Comrade, you know, it's 1961, now it's 24 years later.
What months was that?
End of February 1985. No, end of March 1985. It was released 28th. End of March 1985. Snaps to attention, Comrade. And so we talked and we joked a bit, and I walk a bit further. And another comrade, Comrade Commandant. Hey man. And then this guy, he says, you don't remember me. You don't remember, but you remember my brother Townsend also.
Okay.
Yeah. But you were a little boy. He says, no, I was at the camp.
Okay.
And his mother was a famous activist. She was very badly treated, I heard since. And so there it was, 24 years later, I walk in, I'm still the Comrade Commandant.
Okay.
It was very nice for me, I must admit. You know.
Yeah, that must have...
And then I met Paulo Jordan, who was on the National Executive. You know, he's from Cape Town. He's the son of AC Jordan, the language expert and a writer. And Paulo said to me, Denny, these guys, they have such a reputation, you know. Disciplined. They do what they're supposed to do and more. And they learned their discipline from me, I must tell you that. They say so.
I wonder if there are those who are still living today.
Oh yes, I'll give you a telephone number of one of them right now. Let me find my telephone.
I will take it later.
Well, I can talk to him, maybe he can talk to you. Shall I phone him? Right? You want to me?
Okay.
So you were released in the 28th of Feb?
Yeah. Peter, it's under Peter. P. There's P.
Because we'll have to round up some of them.
No, I haven't got the number. I don't know why.
No, when you have it, we'll.
But I took his name.
No, you didn't have to worry now.
But I'm interested. No, I don't know what I did with it. Okay. We can find the names.
Yeah, we'll find the names then. Well, one of the things that we'll do, we'll invite them. Then
Yeah.
we can sit together with them.
Yes.
Yeah, just to prick memories.
Maybe we can support the search by, if we get a couple of names from you, we go to the people and just then they refer to the next person. It makes it.
That's my memory of it.
Okay, that's quite interesting. That's very interesting. That's quite interesting. That's very interesting.
But what I remember was the enthusiasm of these young people.
Okay.
They, you know, it wasn't wildcat something, you just go up and do nonsense.
They wanted freedom.
I wanted freedom, and I wanted to do it in an organized, disciplined way. I mean, for instance, I said, you have to be able to inform people what we're doing. Don't lie to people. Don't say we've destroyed thousands of the enemy when we haven't even been in action, because they will never believe you. You know, and you have to depend on the ordinary people to support you, and otherwise you can't survive. But, yeah.
Then during the time where when you were 20, you said you were 28, 27,
29, yeah.
29, were you working?
Yeah.
Working as?
I was a civil engineer.
Civil engineer. Oh, now I can make a connection between the action there.
I was an engineer, and I think my comrade said, if you can build bridges, you know where the weak point is, to blow them up again.
Yeah, weak point of the bridge.
No, but I had technical training, that was the point. And these were things that I had as a privileged young white guy. So you put it to the service of your movement. You know?
Okay.
If you want freedom, if you want to share your freedom, then that's what you do.
Were you recruited into joining the ANC?
Well, in those days, the ANC was for Africans only. African National Congress, Coloured People's Congress, Indian Congress, Congress of Democrats for whites. I was a member of Congress of Democrats.
Okay.
There were not a lot of us who would ally ourselves with the ANC.
Okay.
A few hundred around the country, you know. There was one time when in Cape Town we actually had 5 branches of Congress of Democrats. And then as the pressure and the fear grew, it dwindled down, and we must have had about 20 members, well, you know, who would always do things. But we would organize meetings, we would have house meetings, there might be 40 or 50 people there that want to know about the future and how we would see it.
That was interesting. You know, as we say that, you know, that's why I was trying to ask you whether How old were you? What were you doing during that time you were a civil engineer? I was trying to make connections between the engine, circuit breakers, and all those things, you know.
Yeah.
Because if you can say to me about circuit breakers, okay, fine, I know a bit now, but you know, anything that is electrical, I'm not a fundi when it comes to it, you know. I'm not a fundi.
I knew something, but I knew people who knew a lot more than me. Well, my brother was an electrical engineer, telephone engineer.
Okay.
So, you know,
Did he teach you some things also?
as a little boy, I learned all this from him.
Okay, okay, now I see. Oh, you learned the skill from him.
Well, but you see, there were books for children about electricity, about how things work, and you live in you don't want to get out of your bed at night because it's cold, so you learn how to make a switch by your bedside so that the light goes off and on, you know. If you've got the opportunities, you do it. If you don't have the opportunity, you don't.
Okay.
My father had a small business as a cartage contractor. He had 3 trucks.
Okay.
So I used to be, if the trucks were being repaired, I was in there covered in grease repairing the trucks. So from a very young age, you know, I've known about motor car engines.
Where were you living then? Where were you staying?
At that time in Claremont.
In Claremont.
Yeah.
What were your parents, what did your parents say if, I mean, you were
My
busy?
parents were political activists.
Okay, okay. Because I'm trying to find out what's their reaction if you're busy moving with these black people and you...
No, I grew up with people in my home coming to meetings and going to meetings.
All right.
My father was a very well-known public speaker.
Okay.
But of course, that exposed me to all of this. But you must know that the Suppression of Communism Act, which made any opposition communism, whether you were a communist in the real sense or not, was 1950. And that was the year I started at university.
Okay.
I was 16, 17 years old that year. And you had to make a choice. Are you going to go to prison or are you going to study? Or do both? It took me a long time to work out what I was going to do.
Okay.
You know, you learn about these things with your mother's milk, so to speak.
Yeah.
But do you just do it because you're expected to do it? Or do you do it because you believe it's right to do it?
Okay.
I finished at university and then became active because I had to. Because from inside myself I had to. And my dream was to build things. I wanted to build roads and railways and water systems, and that was my dream. I grew up, that was my dream. And then I discovered in South Africa, I couldn't realize that dream. I could build for whites, but I couldn't build for people.
You couldn't build for everybody.
I wanted to build for everybody. And first you had to change things, make a different kind of government and society. And then I was lucky when I was 69 years old. I came back to South Africa and I was advisor to Minister Ronnie Castles in water affairs.
Okay.
And now I could bring water to everybody.
Okay.
So my life, it was really and truly a fulfillment of a dream.
Okay.
To be involved in that, you know. But it was more than that. I did not want to be part of the oppression. I didn't want to be, if you were white and you had the vote and you lived the life of an ordinary white South African, you had the choice of being actively involved in creating apartheid, or of doing nothing, or just living your life is the same as doing nothing. And if you're just living your life, you're actually part of the system. You employ somebody in your house, you sign the pass book. You work on a construction site, you've got workers, African workers, you sign the pass book. You're part of apartheid. I didn't want to be. I thought it was wrong. And I thought it was wrong, not just morally wrong, it was dangerous for everybody. You can't be an oppressor and sleep comfortably at night. If you want your children to grow up accepting that people are people, it doesn't matter about skin or hair or whatever, then you must do something.
Hey, sorry, I'm in a meeting. Okay. No, can't quasi. Okay, pleasure.
Here it is. That's his name. Willie Sapento.
You got him there?
Yeah.
What's his name?
He's called Alfred Willie or Willie Sapento.
What's his number?
I'll get it for you. Just try. 076 926 6 3013.
What's his name?
Willie
Willie
Sapento, S-I-P I-E D, and then S-I
Sapento.
P-H-E-T-H-O.
P-H-E-T-H-O.
Sapento.
Sapento, yeah. Sapento.
He came to me the other day, he said, "Comrade, I was at the camp with you." I can't remember.
Where does he stay now?
Somewhere in Cape Town.
We'll try and get him.
You know, but leaving Mama,
Yeah.
were you forced to leave, or were you decided out of your own will to leave and
Leave Mummery?
Yeah.
No, the security police said, "Pack up and go, or we arrest the whole lot of you.
I see.
We'll take you by force." So there was no point staying.
And then you were.
But we were there illegally on the land, you see.
And it was because it was Christmas, they would have taken you.
Oh yes.
They didn't want to be like,
That was
they didn't want to be bogged down about this and that and that and that. Because they were enjoying themselves.
I think so.
That's where the luck came in.
Did you meet again?
What, the camp?
Yeah.
No, not directly in that way. No, things got very, 1961, the pressure was on, you know,
Yeah.
really, and you didn't want to expose people to more danger, you know. It's, if they were going to be active, I don't know how many people, what I'd like to find out now is that quite a lot of people were sent out of the country for training.
Okay.
And some of them must have been sent as well. And in those days you didn't ask too much, and if you knew because you were organisationally involved, then you knew. But if you didn't have to know, you didn't ask.
There was only 1 year between 1962 before the trial started in '63.
That's right. Yeah, it was the whole of a year and a half later the trial. Yeah, the pace was stepping up all the time.
During the trial, that Mamre thing came out.
Oh yes. They gave evidence against us, and one of the young people, whose name I've forgotten, I could probably find it in my notes, he said that I had said, the comrade commandant said, better to commit suicide than to give information to the police. Oh, so that's why Look Smart and Goodleg committed suicide under interrogation, because the comrade commandant told him to commit suicide. The story was that he hanged himself in a cell where there are no ropes, no hooks, no nothing. They said he tied a blanket around his neck and leaned forward until he fell unconscious and strangled himself. You can't kill yourself that way, I'm quite sure. I'm quite sure not. Because you would fall unconscious and your pressure would go off it, you know. Your body would go slack and there'd be no pressure on your throat. I'm quite sure of it. But in any case, he would have been forced into it. He would have been, and there were people who gave evidence, I believe, in the inquest to say that they'd heard what had happened to him. You know, they saw or heard or something. But he was the first. You know, there were a lot of people. There was Andries Raditsela. There was somebody from Durban who had 30 wounds on his back. The only people allowed to see him were security policemen. In the end, according to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, something like 1,000 people were killed. And it's under interrogation, I mean. And in the Truth Commission, there was a police general who, he was told, it was said that he was the commander of people who had dropped bodies into the sea, or dropped people into the sea from helicopters, and thrown bodies into a river so crocodiles could eat the evidence that they'd killed them. I mean, we know of the Craddock three, you remember? And there's Steve Biko, there's Neil Aggett, there's Griffiths and Klenge, Victoria and Klenge, and you know, I mean, we know these things now. He was asked about his policemen doing these things. What did he feel? Oh, he said he applauded them, they did right, but it's against the law. He said, we were fighting a war and you had to get rid of the evidence, otherwise the state would have been implicated in death. So he didn't have to apologize, he couldn't be put on trial, he's telling what happened. But the callousness of it, he doesn't say sorry, he doesn't say, well, in retrospect it was brutal. He justifies it, you know. There was a young woman who was shot in the back of the head. She was being interrogated, and her interrogator was brought to the Truth Commission. And he said, well, he was just threatening her, he didn't mean to kill her. She was very brave, you know. So brave, he shot her and killed her. And she was buried on a farm illegally. And he took the commission to where she was buried, and they exhumed her body and they found just the bones. And she was wearing a panty made of a blue plastic shopping bag because they'd stripped her naked. So she covered herself with it. I mean, you know, men can do terrible things, but to do it to women in this way. Mummery was a part of that. We could see it coming, and I can tell you when the 90-day law was passed in 1963, my comrade said to me, Dennis, this is a license for torture. You will be among the first arrested, you are going to be tortured, and even if you don't break, other people will. You're going to get at least 10 years in prison. You better leave, but go through Johannesburg, through the High Command, which I did. And they asked me to stay, and I didn't get 10 years, I got 4 times life. Maybe I should have stayed in Cape Town.
4 times life?
I had 4 life sentences. But to relax, you only serve one lifetime. That's all you've got. I laugh now because it's the only way I can deal with it.
So at the end of the day, do you think, when you think back on your life generally, do you sometimes think of things that you would have been able to do that you were denied of, or you are saying to yourself, it was worth it, I had to fulfill how I felt?
I had to fulfill how I felt.
Good.
I've lived through life. It's not been easy. And it wasn't easy on my wife and children.
Yeah.
But I feel fulfilled. I feel justified.
Okay.
I see the results.
Okay.
Could be better, we could achieve more, we will achieve more. Let me put it this way. I've tried to live by my conscience.
Okay.
I've tried not to be an oppressor. I've tried to enable people to be free to realize themselves as human beings. I've been loved, I've made love, I've made children. I don't have any grandchildren yet,
Okay.
but I've got beautiful children. Of course I've got grandchildren. I haven't got any great-grandchildren.
Oh, no, great.
I've got grandchildren. I've got my son's 2 daughters, and my late daughter has left me a very clever grandson who's an athlete. He plays rugby, plays cricket, he's good academically. So, you know, he's 15 years old, his whole life ahead of him. And I've come back to my South Africa. And hey man, it was worth it. I'm a lucky chap. Lucky I wasn't murdered, lucky I wasn't killed. You take up arms against the state, if you survive, it's a piece of luck. Eh?
Okay.
So you would
And
say
I've worked with people like Mandela and Sisulu and the older Mbeki. That's my generation. Elias Matsaledi. Man, during the trial we became so friendly. And we talked and we told stories to each other, and Andrew Mlangeni. We became so close, you know.
During the trial?
During the trial. Now there's just 4 of us left, of those who were sentenced.
would you have done something different if you would do it again?
I would have done it better. If I had my life over again, I would do it better, more carefully, more effectively. I would like to make different mistakes, not those mistakes, you know. But I have no regrets about it. I mean, I think I came out of prison a stronger person, certainly better educated. I was able to study, you know, and read 22 years.
You say you were with Rose's Bram Fisher.
Yes.
Wow. Were you meeting almost every time?
Well, Bram Fisher he defended us in the Rivonia Trial.
Okay.
And then after the trial he was arrested.
Okay.
He was sentenced to life imprisonment.
Okay.
And we saw each other every day until near the end of his life, when he was taken out of our prison to Bloemfontein, where he died 3 weeks later, or a bit later. I nursed him in prison. He had cancer, he lost so much weight, I could pick him up off his bed and put him on the toilet, clean him up and put him back in bed again. I slept in his cell.
They did not release him when he was very
No,
sick?
no. And not only did they not release him, all his letters, all his papers they destroyed, and his ashes they got rid of. They didn't give them to his family. And they didn't even keep them. They say they were scattered. What they were worried about was that where his ashes would become a shrine. I'm giving a lecture on Thursday night at the Ezekiel Museum, Memories of Rob Fisher.
Where?
The museum in
Ezekiel.
Ezekiel, 7 o'clock. I've been asked to give the talk. And I've been working to make the speech short enough to give, because I can talk for hours about it. In the end, I won't read it, I'll just tell it, you know. I think
no, we'll let's arrange for Saturday already. Then we have to leave early. If the weather is okay, the weather should be okay for us to go there.
yes.
No, but if it rains,
If it rains, it means we won't go. We'll have to leave early in the morning. Then we can always have something to eat that side. It would be nice to go to that community and go and have something to eat there. Yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice.
This Willie Sepeto, he tells me they've been talking to the community who are, I don't know who they've been talking to. Just if you go and get some cards from these people who are in the cultural department.